You've got that right. We're back to, that's right, another week of bangers in terms of earnings. We got another great week ahead of us. It's really exciting. A lot of great companies we're going over. I have 3 focus stocks for you today. And obviously, as usual, we'll go through every single stock here, and I'll give you my opinions on them if I have opinions on them. So we'll see how that goes. We're just going to go ahead and get cracking on it. Before open, nothing super exciting for me Monday before open. I can't lie to you. We got Thermo Fisher Scientific on semiconductors, which, if you look based off of previous company earnings, like what Micron posted about a month back, you should be expecting some pretty good numbers out of these guys. If it means anything for the whole sector, we'll see what that looks like. We have Quotient, Otis, Alliance Resource Partners, LP, and Sterling. But after close, we get a little bit more interesting stuff here, okay? For me, at least. You know, you may have enjoyed some of those, but after close, we have Vertex, NXP, Cirrus Logic, I think, is one worth looking at. And I say this specifically based off of the really piggybacking off of Apple's earnings of last week, in which they posted massive beat in terms of iPhone 12 sales. So really just iPhone devices in general, but a vast majority that's going to be iPhone 12s. So to see the fact that they managed to post such a massive number in terms of that means this Cirrus Logic, who is in charge of making their audio codecs for these devices, these are parts that get specifically put into these iPhones. They're likely going to see an increased demand as well. So therefore, you're probably going to see a pretty good quarter out of this company based off of the demand for the iPhone, and probably a larger buildup in stock of inventory because of that demand. So that's what's worth looking at. We have Rambus after them, Skyline, Potlatch Deltic, don't know what that's supposed to mean, Fabrinet, Alexandria, Harmonic, CSWC. That'll wrap out Monday for you. Tuesday, we get into, this is where we get the big boys, okay? The big boys are coming out to play Tuesday. We see first starting off with Alibaba. Alibaba, always worth looking at. Really well-operated company over in China. That's right, it's China. Company does a lot. I mean, they're pretty well Google or Amazon-esque in what they do over there. So really major company. And if you look at anything, I'll just tell you, I'm the guy you look for these retail earnings estimates. Okay, I have the insight. Okay, and if you look, digital is what benefited the most. We saw a little bit of a lackluster period in terms of December for in-store traffic, but .com managed to carry retail to massive levels to the degree you've rarely seen. So that's why Alibaba should be doing really good. Pfizer numbers are going to be interesting. Obviously, I think a majority of this stock, frankly, it's going to just relate on in terms of vaccine news. I think the reaction to this earnings report, the stock's only going to care what the CEO has to say about the vaccine. I mean, if we're being 100% honest, I think you know that's the case as well. So there's some stocks that have been sucked into a rabbit hole where really there's only one thing people look at anymore. I would put maybe Netflix in that number, where people just look at subscriber growth now as opposed to any other numbers. Pfizer, they're looking just at the vaccine data. That's all we want to know. So that's my concern in that aspect. But obviously Pfizer, really good company, the one I'll be looking at. UPS, again, when I mentioned with online retail, I think UPS will see quite an increased amount of demand because of the fact that there's been so many online orders placed for merchandise. UPS has been running ragged. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They're delivering a lot of packages and likely see some benefit because of that. So, yeah, really exciting stuff. So on top of that too, right after them we have a little bit of a couple different oil companies here. We got ExxonMobil and BP. Curious on these. I don't think there's anything crazy to say. We've seen some increasing gas prices nationwide, just by a slight margin so far. I don't think you're going to see much craziness in terms of these companies this quarter. Obviously, what's on mind of some investors is going to be obviously share repurchases. Are they going to bring these back? And are we going to reinstate dividends on some of these companies where these oil companies have been hit so hard they had to cut their dividend? What does dividend reinstatement look like in the picture for some of these companies? That's going to be the main focal point, in my opinion. I think numbers should be relatively normalized. We have Sirius XM. Harley Davidson. Are a lot of people buying motorcycles? I can't tell you I've seen more motorcycles on the road, but it's tough to say on that aspect. People have been spending a lot of money. This is going to be a stimulus quarter for them. Did someone buy a nice motorcycle with their extra dollars? Maybe they did. I don't know. We'll find out. MDC, McKesson, and Marathon as well. So after close, we have the biggest hitter of, well, frankly, nearly the market. Let's just be honest here. And that is in Amazon, right? Really important to say. I just talked about it with Alibaba. I think Amazon, which first off is a focus stock, is going to blow out people's estimates. So we'll look at these estimates real quick. Expected an EPS line of $7.19. Frankly, I think that's a beat. I think they're going to be close to an $8. They could be even close to a $9. It's going to be a beat by a good margin, in my opinion. And from an earnings standpoint, it may seem crazy to say they're already estimated a 37% increase to $119.66 billion. I think it's going to be even a bigger number than that. It's going to be an even bigger number than that. I'm expecting close to $125 billion. It could be even larger than that. And I could be wrong on that, but it's really exciting, though, for this company because they're at the forefront of every single beneficiary. They're the biggest beneficiary of this market right now. They really are. It's going to be the biggest holiday quarter they've seen. There's no doubt about it. I think it's going to be an outrageous revenue number. 125 may be a little aggressive, but I do believe it's going to be over 120 billion. So just keep that in mind. I think they'll beat. I think it'll be a pretty big beat. So Alphabet, worth mentioning as well. Google, boom, big stuff here. I would piggyback this one more off of Facebook earnings potentially to take a look at them. And you see some really good data that they posted. Their advertising revenue, which rose quite a bit, mostly due to increased user time. You're probably going to see an increase in user time here as well, in terms of every segment of Alphabet. Obviously, Google search from every one of their devices, every single one of their platforms probably sees an increased growth. And the vast majority of the revenue is made off of advertising, so therefore you'll probably see a benefit in that aspect as well. So keep that in mind. Alphabet should be posting some really freaking good numbers because Facebook just blew their estimates out of the water. Chipotle, EA, not a fan of EA personally, but they do what they want to do, okay? Video games have been taken off like no one's business, so likely EA is going to see a benefit just naturally. From the video game sales reports, they send those out every single month, and you're perfectly able to research them if you want to. It shows you the top 10 games for that month. It's been pretty consistent that Madden's been up there, NHL's been up there. So again, and even FIFA was up there. I think it still is in the top 10. All three of those games were in the top 10 still for the last several months. So keep that in mind with EA. They're going to benefit from that. We have FireEye. Match. Still curious on Match. Are a lot of people trying to find relationships now with everything going on? Probably. But it's also an interesting time to have that happen because it's hard to go on a date. So who knows what Match looks like. It's going to be curious to look at. Amgen. Then we have Big Ol' Chubb. He's a running back, Nick Chubb, for the Cleveland Browns. So in case you were curious, he's reporting some earnings. Perkin Elmer. Elmer makes glue. And Ichor Systems. Wednesday before open, we have AbbVie. One I'm really interested in looking at for many reasons. Obviously, it's the stock I hold. They've had a really good run up lately. So going to be really interesting to see if they can continue that run up based off of this data. They've been posting some good numbers here, and I think they will definitely post some even continued good numbers in terms of their flagship drugs from Humira onward. I think there's going to be some good numbers from them, so pretty exciting stuff. Spotify after them is one of my focus stocks, believe it or not. So we're going to take a look at these earnings estimates. I'll let you know what we're expecting here. So from Spotify, we are expecting, let's get this pulled up right quick. Where's my mouse at? There it is. Found it. They're expecting an EPS line of negative 71 cents. Obviously, still a negative earner on this company. They've made progress for sure, but we'll see what that looks like. Not too sure, but we'll see. Revenue estimate sitting at $2.61 billion, which is an increase of 40%. So there's a few factors with Spotify you need to think about. From an EPS standpoint, I don't necessarily know what that looks like. Again, it's not going to be a profit. There's no doubt about it. The company just it doesn't do it. It doesn't make profit. Okay. And this year's been exceptionally rough on them too. So you'd like to see a beat here from a shareholder standpoint, but still, we'll take a look at that. But from the revenue standpoints, when I wanted to look at, obviously, I think a lot of people have had a lot more free time, and they spent that probably either watching videos, listening to podcasts. For sure, podcasts have been a major part of it, and Spotify getting into the podcast game has been pretty good for them. So I think it's a pretty accurate revenue estimate of a 40% gain. I can't say it's going to be I think if they beat it, it'll be a minor amount. It won't be too crazy, so just keep that in mind. Then we have Biogen, Ligand, Dynatrace, Humana, Boston Scientific, Enterprise Products Partners, Checkpoint, and Scotts Miracle-Gro. Just going to talk about Scotts Miracle-Gro pretty briefly. And the fact that you may think over the winter quarter might not be the best time for them in terms of retail sales, but I do think it still will be. People are still spending a lot of time on home gardens. They've been getting into some projects over the last year that they're going to keep continuing to do, and that could be taking care of their lawn, gardening, whatever that might be. So Scotts Miracle-Gro, it's probably going to see decent demand, honestly. After close, we have PayPal. Should see quite an increase in demand with all the online shopping going on. PayPal probably sees a pretty big benefit. Qualcomm, as I mentioned, with Cirrus Logic, really big importance in terms of these iPhones that have been outperforming crazily outperforming estimates. So Qualcomm sees probably really better than expected numbers as well. There's Digital Turbine. eBay has been putting up really solid numbers this last year for a lot of reasons. Obviously, e-commerce being the forefront of retail right now, it just frankly is taken over. And this 2020 really accelerated that, and it's going to continue to accelerate over the next little while. So eBay's probably putting up really good numbers, and I think it's going to be a beat, frankly, in terms of revenue on the company. EPS line, I don't know what to think, but the revenue is going to be a beat. E plus, okay. Align, I believe they make the Align. Yes. Qorvo. We've got Grubhub. Grubhub, talk about a money loser with Grubhub. Definitely a company that is a negative earnings haver, but we'll take a look. Demand's going to be massive for Grubhub. I will say that. You're going to see massive demand and massive revenue growth. Again, EPS line is going to be one to look at, though, because it's probably going to be worse than expected. If you see a revenue that's better than expected, in my opinion. There's KLA and Allstate. Thursday before open, we have Clorox Company reporting. You know it. Clorox, you love it. Their products are at the forefront of everything right now. There's issues with demand, and also in terms of them selling it. They've been selling it to hospitals for cheaper rates, so it'll be a really interesting earnings to look at, but regardless, the stock really is stagnant. Don't see much movement with it ever. Bristol Myers Squibb Company. Merck, Again, with these biopharmas, most people are really concerned about vaccines. Don't know what Merck has to offer in terms of that, really, but we'll take a look at it. There's Vista, IDEX Corporation, Quest Diagnostics, Hymax, and there's Philip Morris on there. Who's smoking cigarettes still? Come on now, people. Shouldn't be. I'm curious. Obviously, I always track these Philip Morris earnings for sure because it's really interesting to see. Because I want to see, personally, I want to see a decline in terms of the revenue because, again, they've expanded their technology, but I'd like to see less people smoking. Ideally, not good for you. It's not good for you. But worth looking at, obviously too. Never a company I'd invest in. We have Yum Brands. Normal fast food earnings. They've been pretty subpar, not quite to expectations if you're looking at McDonald's last week. So we'll see what Yum Brands has to offer. After close, Pinterest and Snapchat, both, I'm going to put them in the same category because these piggyback off of Facebook of last week, which should see incredibly increased demand, which means you're likely to see incredibly increased ad revenue. That's right. And an EPS line that was pretty significantly better. I don't know what to think for these two companies, but from a revenue perspective, expect a lot. Ford Motor is my last focus stock, going to be expected a negative 7 cents EPS line versus 12 cents a year ago. Again, it's a pandemic quarter. I mean, not too crazy. This could be pretty big stuff here in terms of what they are able to do, but I think an EPS line, I think it's going to be a beat. This company often disappoints me, but I really do think the demand's a little bit higher than we're giving credit for, and a revenue estimate of $33.8 billion, which is a decline in sales of 7.7%. So we'll see what that looks like. Obviously, I think it'll be a beat personally, but we'll have to see. There's Peloton. Should see really increased demand, honestly, with a lot of people doing home workouts. Activision Blizzard video game selling has been out of control. I expect really good numbers from them. Gilead, again, you're going to talk about Remdesivir and what that's been able to do for the company. That's going to be the focal point of these earnings. Unity, you see benefit in the gaming sector. Fortinet, GoPro, not one I even bother looking at. T-Mobile, Telecom, not too sure on them yet, what these earnings are going to look like. We've got Regeneron as well. Going to be looking, obviously, at their COVID solution as well. Treatment, it's going to be important. The focal point for sure. Meridian Biosciences. We've got Micro, Sanofi, Adient, ITW, Brookfield Business Partners, Estee Lauder, AON, and Train Technologies. That's what I got for you this week. Hope you really enjoyed.